No worries.
Too many, like I have too many windows open when I'm recording. I got it now.
It's always the case, I think,
Yes. And as soon as that's going, I should be good. I think.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think we're good now. Perfect. All right, that's going, and we'll get rid of that window and bring that one up. We'll move you over here. I think I'm almost ready. Glasses will help. Are you CEO? What's your role besides co-founder?
Chief Tech Evangelist. So I'm the evangelist. Yeah, Philip is our CEO. Yeah, he's really good.
I'm just going to put and Chief Tech Evangelist down here as well.
Yeah.
Just so it's okay.
Yeah, we had to add the tech.
Why not?
Well, it was also because evangelist, especially in the States, was like
that means something different.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So they were like, oh, she's a co-founder of a company plus like.
Yeah, I know. It's funny how you have to do that. Didn't Microsoft have a bunch of evangelists before and stuff? Didn't they call them that?
Tons. Yeah. We were, the reason evangelist is I remember getting my first swag from PayPal like 15 years ago or something, or 13 years ago at a hackathon, one of those hackathons at Mars. We're talking about, and he said he was stopped at the border saying, evangelist. What do you mean by evangelist? Are you guys part of a church? And he's like, PayPal? Close, and then he gave me some chapstick, I'm like, wow, I'd love your job one day. I didn't think I was going to be doing that.
Funny how long we've come, or the road we've traveled, right? Yeah.
I know,
we used to go to these
hackathons.
Conferences and go, wow, and now we go to the conferences because we're working them all the time.
I know. Oh my gosh, I was thinking about all those hackathons we went to and all the events, Girl Geeks and everything we did. Yeah, it's a good community, that's for sure. Yeah.
For sure. Well, let's get this thing going.
Sweet.
Welcome back to Startup Talk. I'm your host, the Startup Coach, founder of Toronto Starts, one of the largest startup communities in Canada. And with me today is Helen, co-founder and Chief Tech Evangelist of ODAIA.
Yeah, you did it. ODAIA. Yeah, you did great, as always.
Sorry for the pause. I should have asked you there. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, thanks, Greg, again. I'm so happy to be on the show.
Can you start? Yeah, it's great to see you again. We were just talking before the show about, I think the last time we physically saw each other was at the CNE Emerging Innovators Pitch Competition pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was, we had competitions. We had, I think it's the pre-COVID world. I mean, we were just talking about being at hackathons in person and that whole startup community in Toronto and in Canada. And I think we're revving up again. I think we're revving up. We're coming back into person. So I bet I'll see you sooner than later. We'll get into physicality again. I think, we're not just
I hope
holograms.
So. Yeah, I'll bug you about, getting out. If you're in the Toronto area, you should come out to our startup investor drinks.
Those are one of the best drinks, that's for sure.
Yeah. No. And though this won't be, it'll be too late for this podcast recording on Tuesday, we're doing our startup investor drinks, but it's the after party of the Futurist Conference. So we're going to have a bunch of special guests there from the Futurist Conference as well. So it'll be interesting. So why don't we get into it? Can you tell us about starting your journey into the world of AI and technology and what inspired you to co-found ODAIA?
Yeah, it's, my journey is not the usual, I think the usual journey that people expect. You go to uni, you do some computer science, you're doing some research, and then, you're there. Mine was always, I always coded. I was part of a makerspace movement about 10, 15 years ago. My background is in anthropology and business and tech. I was always a coder, developer, designer, anything you did. Like it was always a Jill of all trades, and working with amazing groups out of U of T, OCAD, Ryerson, now the Met. There were a lot of great groups about 10 to 15 years ago in Toronto, and I was part of those. And one of the events I went to was about enhancing human capabilities. And part of that enhancement is not only wearables and the data, and we're talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, was with Steve Mann and Marvin Minsky. So when I met them and I was working with Steve on this conference at IEEE, I think my perspective of the world just opened, because here I am, designing mobile apps, going to hackathons, doing, projects, working with startups. And then seeing, I think when you see people, when they talk about what they're working on and what they see the future on, I think my world changed, right? And I had created an awesome network. And when I started teaching at the University of Toronto, I was able to then be part of the IBM Watson teaching team. So being able to get a hold of tech in your hands, like being able to say, okay, I'm using AI, I'm using machine learning, and I'm able to add data and do things. So for me, being someone who's not the usual background, I guess, but I think it is a usual background now. You do whatever you want in this world. For me, it was always about learning and trying new things. And that's how I got into that world. And at U of D, there's Jeffrey Hinton, was just Emma Hall. You had some amazing people around you in computer science at University of Toronto. So it's been 10 years. I'm still teaching there, but very part-time. I have no time. It's all founder. So that's how I got into the tech part. This is how I got into AI and ML and just IoT and emerging technologies.
ODAIA's mission. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, like, ODAIA came out of because of that environment, and I think we worked a lot together. And like when we had a lot of teams that came out of the University of Toronto, and I tried my best. I tried my best to support as many teams as I could out of U of T to commercialize and become startups. That was my mission. One of them was there was some technology. A professor and their student was Pericles Andritsos, was working on customer journey mapping and process mining and machine learning. So there was interest of taking that out of the university, and I was kind of part of that journey. And that's how I became a founder of ODAIA. And I incorporated the company in March 2018. And then it was just building a team, it was building a team and creating. So yeah, that was the journey out of academics, right, into creating a company and figuring out what we're going to do next, the usual with academics and finding what is it, like, you have a solution, now you got to find a problem. Yeah, that was us.
ODAIA's mission revolves around reducing patients' time to therapy. So why this problem? And then could you elaborate on how the AI-powered platform achieves this goal?
Yeah, so why that problem? Well, we could have went into many different, 2018, 2019, there was many problems. You can take machine learning and customer journey mapping. A journey is a journey, right? So it's understanding a journey. And I used to do that manually. I love Post-it notes. I have them everywhere. And you manually understand a journey. You put Post-its, you design, this is what we think we'd love to see. And then when the reality is, when I would do it manually, is I would look behind the scenes and look at, your data about your sales data, the data behind the website usage, in-person information, all this data about customers were very segmented. Like, it was just all over the place. And our goal was to always bring things together and create a unified idea of who the person is, who the customer is and what they're doing. So there's a lot of unknowns. For us, it was understanding and understanding that journey. Part of the journey that we went into, because of a connection we had with the Faculty of Medicine, I'd worked with the Faculty of Medicine on AI and computer science. They were working together. So I had a connection. They said, look, we have a pharmaceutical company who wants to understand that customer journey. And that journey is a patient journey. And beyond that journey, before that journey, is that sales rep. So we're supporting the salesperson who's on the ground, who's going to go talk to the doctor, give them information about a new therapeutic or new updates about it, and then get that information to a patient. That journey is very static, very broken, and information is not flowing. And for us is saying, how do we help that journey? Because the more information that gets to a doctor about a new therapeutic, the more it gets to a patient. And then they can decide what is the best therapy for that patient. I've got a great story overall, like a very personal one that was my aha moment with that. And it was very personal. And I think that is when I realized what we were trying to do. Because what we were doing is we had a great pilot with a pharma company, a top 10 pharma company, very early in 2019. And I was like, okay, we're giving pharma companies insights about patients, insights about, their sales reps, and about doctors, especially about doctors, and just behavioral trends. You can't do this all manually and human. Like, it's a lot of data. And so you're bringing out all these insights. They're starting to see about the doctor. And then they can go and say, okay, we'll go talk to them. I was sitting I took care of my dad until he passed. And he had a major gout. He had gout, kidneys. There was a lot of stuff we had to deal with. And he was about 86 at the time. This is pre-COVID, a few years before COVID, about a year. And I'm sitting there with the doctor. It's 2019. You have the doctor there. You have my dad. My dad's going through a lot of problems with these medications. I did not know this. The doctor goes, look, we have to get you a new therapeutic. We've got to get you something new. Dad needs this. You got problems with his kidneys. They might fail. Like, there's like so much stuff, right? And she goes, I have to call the rep. I have to call the sales rep. And I went, excuse me? You got to call the sales rep because I don't know everything about the clinical trial. I need to learn about how it affected other therapeutics, other drugs your dad's taking, right? I need to understand this. That is what we were doing. That was our pilot, to get information to doctors about therapeutics. And that was my aha moment. So I think that was when I went, wow, okay, my doctor does not know about this, needs to learn, goes to conferences. Like, she was amazing. She really helped maintain my dad's life for the last few years. And is because it was this knowledge. She was very proactive. And she always was very proactive to say, I'm going to reach out. I need to get more information. I need to get the newest info. And then we got him on within like a few days. And he was so much better, right? So those interactions gave me the aha moment, what ODAIA is doing. We're not in drug discovery. We're not in that part where it's really like sexy. We're at the part where you finally get a therapeutic into a patient's hands, and you have to understand those journeys and those layers of journeys. And that's where we come in.
Your website talks about human-centric software powered by AI. This is really important when you're talking about healthcare, and, your story is very personal. You're talking about people's lives, and you put AI in that, and people think, of a cold robot doing these things. How do you ensure your technology maintains that human touch and enhances the interaction between the healthcare providers and the patients?
I think one of the things that was very different for us when we were starting ODAIA is we wanted to productize what we were creating. So I think around that, you remember that 2018, 2019, there was a lot of buzz, right? Got to use AI, got to use AI. It was very consulting focused. And all we thought was, no, we're creating a product someone has to use. And that someone is where I think our backgrounds in design thinking and in design, and my chief product officer, Mark, is very design focused, because it's the empathy with the user to use technology. The technology doesn't, if it doesn't help you, it's not going to work. Like you're not going to use it. That was a major issue. That was a pain point. The pain point was there were two pain points that we heard from our users and at many levels. The mistrust of technology, the mistrust of it's not human. I hate putting this information. So just, just like putting like, just getting information. Our sales rep don't like using it. They use paper. They're not interacting. There was a lot of little pain points, but that's normal, right? That's normal across building products, right? The other one was distrust of AI, a distrust of, what does this mean? Is this taking my job? So there was a very big layer of distrust. So the question is, can we create an assistant, but not an assistant? I didn't want it to become like kind of this buddy of yours. This is enhancing your work. As someone who always used tech to enhance my work, it made my work better. So understanding the work, we were meeting sales rep who were amazing. They really were creating special relationships with the doctors because they were trying to use all the information and data. Can we create a product that was the same thing? Can we create a product that was human-centric, meaning it was designed for them, and then enhance their work and elevate it? I think we've done that. We have sales rep who say, this is exactly what we need right now. This is what I wish I had this many years ago. I have sales reps who are not sales reps anymore going, this is exactly what I needed. And I think this relationship with AI and machine learning and just any new technologies that are coming out, the question is it helping you or hindering you? If it's hindering you, they're not going to use it anyways. That's a normal product issue, right? It's always been an issue. For us, it's the question is this going to make their job better and feel more empowered? Are they going to do better? Are they going to feel like they understand? And for us, it was usually a lot of AI is like, we'll tell you what to do. Don't worry, the AI is going to tell you. No, I felt, and all of us feel like my co-founder, Philip, was like, no, there needs to be a why. And this is where AI becomes special. Why are you telling me this? And for us, it was always about not only to see the results that you're getting, the insights. You need to understand why. Understanding why this doctor is important. And then how am I going to go talk to them? So I think there was a layer of, that's the human part, the integration into your lives, and I think that's for me, that's exciting. I love it, is that integration with, it becomes part of your work. It lifts you up. It's like when I was starting to use it 10 years ago and going, wow, like it just took all this time and brought it down, and then I can do so much more. What else can it do? Right? That's the excitement. That's the human part, is increasing that excitement and creativity.
ODAIA specializes in life science and predictive analysis. You've talked a lot about, all the layers and all the data analytics you do on the back end. How did your analytics engine help the pharmaceutical companies, prospects, qualify and, engage the healthcare professionals?
Yeah, so going into, so that was we knew that the back end had to be also the back end, of course, the models and all that we were developing. The front end is that design part, the design of how are they engaging with the data. So there was always, again, another layer of dashboards. Remember about 5 years ago, it was all the dashboards, right? We still hear it a lot, can you give us a dashboard? Can you do this? And for us, I will say this, we are gamers. Like, I had to, like 10 years ago, I was like always playing League. We had to stop. Like I had to stop. I have no time. We were thinking about how we can create a very interesting interaction with the data and understanding. So let's level. Sales reps were given static lists of doctors they have to go talk to. They get into their cars, they go to offices and they go talk, or they pick up phones. a lot of them already have relationships. These are people who have very deep understanding about the therapeutic. They are very understanding about the doctor. They know a lot about just overall what it means for the patient. So someone who has MS or someone who has oncology, like dermatology problems, like, so across the therapeutics, these are very specialized people who've been trained, highly trained on the levels of understanding about this therapeutic and their interactions with doctors. They would have to, on a Sunday, pre-plan about how they're going to go talk to doctors the rest of the week. Static lists that come to them about 3 to 4 or 5 months, very static understanding of what's happening in the field. They take average about 5 hours to do that planning. So you have someone at home just on a Sunday night going, okay, I'm going to spend 5 hours away from my family and I got to plan the rest of the week. We're taking something we took from our early pilots. It went from like sometimes that 5 hours for them to plan who they're going to go talk to, and if that even worked, to down to about 15 to 7 minutes, like sometimes 7 to 15 minutes. We're talking about someone who's really well paid. There's a few, like could be 50 to a couple hundred sales reps in your organization, and we're taking down to like 7 minutes of planning. It's very interactive. They know why they go. You got a HCP power score, you understand where you're going, and you go into the field and talk to a doctor. If that's the right doctor, you understand them, and you're not wasting their time, you're not wasting your time, and you're starting to understand that it's smarter to be in the field of when you need to be there. And I think that was the parts where insights hit really good human-centric platform, and now saying, is knowledge flowing from therapeutic to eventually patient, right? Because then it's prescribed. So closing the loop of information is the key here. Is that, I think that's for us, is like, because when we say real time, we're saying near real time. In the back end, it's near real. Like things have to be processed, a lot of data. But in the front, it's pretty much real time. Every time something's prescribed, it's updated, right? And things are coming back. And this person can be more engaged with the data than they were before. And it's dynamic versus the static lists and the top down, push down. I love empowering people with tools. That's why, because I was someone who was empowered by tools, because I was always told, you don't fit the profile, right? And so to me, empowered by tools is something that I just create the tools. I think that's the kind of community we're from, right, Greg? Like it's always like, we're the builders, we're the creators. We'll tell you what we want to do, right?
Yeah, I do everything myself, and I use probably 20 different things to do what one product would do, but that's because it was spaghettied together over years.
Yeah, I know. We're exactly that's what we were hearing, right? We knew this. When you hear about Frankenstein mashups, right? I think that's like the Steve Blank thing, right? If you hear Frankenstein mashups of tools, and that's what we were hearing. We take this, we have a consulting firm, we take data from this kind of company, we take this and we take that. And we're like, man, there must be a way to unify this. That's when startups really prevail, is when you unify and then give, right? I think that's like, how do we take Frankenstein and, hey, I love Frankenstein, like I'm a horror. I love horror flicks. That's why. So, but when you're using it though, you're like, this is not good. It's expensive, right? And it's also tedious.
Could you provide an overview of what MAPTUAL products are, a MAPTUAL field, a MAPTUAL sphere, and how they're used?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So again, our goal at the beginning was to create a SaaS platform, right? SaaS platform was really important to us. Something that people can turnkey, get in, use, right? So sales reps can get in there, start using the platform. So that was really important to us. And while we were developing, we went with the first use case, the first on the ground field, people in the field, sales reps that can gain granular views of HCPs, and then being able to improve their business of how they work, and including pre-call planning. So all the work they have to do. So seeing the landscape for themselves at a ground level, being able to know why, and then how they're going to go do it. At Sphere, we expanded then the product about a year later because then we realized we were getting pulled into the need, right? So going back to that user need, where you have a marketing team or a sales manager saying, I need to see more, right? I need to see. So you have a management team that now is able to oversee territories, able to assess trends. Are we seeing things being prescribed? Is there an influx? Like, we need to be able to see, and then provide database coaching to their sales teams, right? To say, hey, we're seeing something. You should move over here. I think there's an opportunity, right? So it's kind of like, how do you help a Sphere look? And then marketing was being pulled in and saying, hey, this will help us really create personalized campaigns. And as we know, like, when it comes to AI, it's about I think what was wanted was personalization, right? So HCPs can be personalized, individual, being able to be, and I think between the two platforms, it's about seeing the unseen and then also what competitors are doing, right? So speed to market, and of course, moving and understanding what's happening in the competitive landscape for their therapeutics, right? So between those two are the platforms that we have, and grounded by all of course, the back end of what we've built. But it's very product ML working together. Our teams are very like in sync because we're always closing the loop of information and making sure the users are getting the information they need.
And when you're talking about the MAPTUAL sphere and the types of trends that you're seeing and the analytics you're doing, what types of things are we talking about? Are we talking about outbreaks? Are we talking about prescriptions of particular types of therapeutics going up or down in regions so that you can track, like, is it flowing across the United States this way? And so you should be planning that the next outbreak is going to be here. So you should talk to these doctors now.
I wish we can do the outbreaks. That's another company, right? We got that, right? Isn't that another Canadian company that does it? We're at the for us, it's the where the prescriptions are happening, right? Where the prescriptions are happening. So what's being prescribed? It's pretty much what you said, is kind of the geographical trends of prescribing and the behavioral trends of an HCP. So being able to do continuous behavioral segmentation, those are the insights, right? The trends. Doctors retire, things are changing. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of doctors, right? And different therapies. And so, being able to refresh and understanding purchasing frequencies, and also that continuous behavior segmentation, that's where we come in. All the other stuff, there's other teams that are doing that. That's like other companies that are you can see the potential, Craig. I think you can see the potential of where we could go, but we're really fine-tuning into that need for understanding of HCP, understanding of the journey. That's one journey, right? That's what ODAIA means, right? ODAIA is the journey of, it means like, it's part of like kind of the Odyssey, the Odyssea. It's a Greek word. And so being able to, we understand that journey of that HCP. Eventually, I think you can eventually expand journeys. That'd be kind of cool.
Pharma companies seem to me, in my experience, to be all over the place. I have done some projects for pharma companies, and the one that stands out for me is I went in and developed a software package to help the company accept projects from internal companies and process them and schedule them and all that kind of stuff, because they're all getting these requests and they were always overwhelmed internally. Let's do all this tech stuff. And so they had all this different tech stuff on the go. So there you are as a chief technical evangelist. You drive AI adoption with the pharma teams. What challenges do pharmaceutical companies often face when integrating AI into their operations?
you got it. Like as always, it's the I think this is across a lot of SaaS teams that are working B2B. I think this is a normal problem, is the buy versus build, right? Or partner, right? You got to partner with, other companies, other data sources, of course. But the buy versus build. So I think this has always been an AI issue too, is we can build it, we can do it in-house, right? I think that's kind of the struggle we get a lot. I think we said, sure, go for it. But we can take a lot of parts that your team, they're hiring you, they have their internal AI teams, there's a lot of other problems they could be dealing with, right? And the question is, can you maximize and prioritize, you know, what you're working, like what you need right now? And can you also, I think this is the buy versus build, is we're a team of 90. This is what we specialize in. This is all we do. All we do right now is only think about these two users, right? We think about sales reps and their managers and their marketers. Like we only think about these two groups that need to be in the field or above the field. That's all we do all day long. And we only create a product that they're going to use. What happens with buying, or like, you want to build it in-house, is you're then pulled in every direction. You got to help us here now. You got to help us here. So how do you maintain and build a product like that? You can't. Like it's so expensive. We've raised a Series B because we need to put more and more resources on expanding and perfecting this product. So if you're saying buy or build, I think that's where we face a lot. It's like, hey, we have an AI team, or we should expand it. But aren't there other AI problems you can work on that are more important for a therapeutic company? Like, isn't it like there's so much more other stuff versus the commercial stuff? So I think moving uphill to like clinical trials, to drug discovery, to efficiency of that, I think that's where things can go, and a lot of companies are. And so that's why they purchase us. That's why they use us, right? Is because they're like, you guys have fine-tuned this, and we'll work with you. Other companies, it's a SaaS sales issue. They're long sales cycles, 6 to 8 months. We're always trying to fine tune it. But because we didn't come from pharma, we were always thinking about products and how to streamline SaaS. And that's where my co-founder was really good at, is thinking about getting to the sales cycles to get over those issues that you talk about. Do you know what I mean? Like to get over those humps. But those humps, man. Those issues. You've lived them, them. It's like so many stakeholders. But at the end of the day, people want to work on really good problems. Let us handle like this one. So I think this is the issue we face as a company. But every startup faces, I think.
With your experience in teaching product development and entrepreneurship, along with co-founding U of T's Department of Computer Science Innovation Lab, how do you see academia's role in fostering innovation and entrepreneurship in emerging technologies?
It was, the time I've spent, I feel like I'm out, like, when I co-founded ODAIA in 2018, I had to resign from DISL. That was the thing, right? And it was really hurtful, right? Because it was like, I didn't want to leave something that was really, I can see where I can support so many teams, right? I could support a lot of teams that were academics and get them into pilots and start getting this tech out of the university. And this is the thing, there's a lot of innovation. What's great about U of T is they have a lot of programming, and they've fine-tuned a lot of that tech transfer. So that tech transfer is very important. I think where you need to spend more time is how two things, I think, is for any university and for any academia around the world, like any academics as well, is how to smoothly take it out as fast as possible. So the tech transfer out of the uni, right? And not take a huge percentage, make sure that the cap table is healthy, and we have that. And the investment, that first initial investment. So maybe there's 3. The third one is, how do you support a founder who's an academic who's never been in industry for me, I'd worked with industry. I had worked on tons of projects. We had done pilots. That's why I was brought in. So I wasn't that traditional academic. I wasn't that. I was a professor and an adjunct prof who was just teaching these courses and then supporting these academics. How do you shift an academic viewpoint? A lot of times it's hard and you don't, and they stay in academia, right? And you need to find the right CEO, CTOs who can productize all that and get it out of the university and create companies. So you're creating companies at the end. That's a lot of education. And there's no like perfect way of doing it. And I think when it comes to adding CEOs or adding CTOs, I think it's like, is the person, is the academic, is the professor, is the PhD student, is the master student, is the undergrad student ready to be open to be educated and ready to be learning? It's my first startup. So to me, I was always supporting other startups, you know, but I really had to grow a lot from 2018 to now, 5 years later. Like, there's a lot, you have to be open to learn, right? So I was always, that was good. But humbleness, sometimes that's an issue. You got to be humble, man. You got to be humble. You don't know everything. Yeah, you're really good at this research, but you got to be humble. And I think I'm not sure you could teach that, but I think sometimes you kind of, life gives you humble moments. And then you're like, you know what? There's smarter people, and I think you have to trust your team. So I think team dynamic building out of the university is very important. That education part is really important. So I don't know if that helped answer your question about taking and transferring academic work out of the university, but the biggest thing for me is educating that academic, is educating the students. And that's what I do. In September, I teach the two courses on product dev and design and entrepreneurship. And I can't stop. I love students. It's also great recruitment. I love the students, but it's also great recruitment. So I recruited from that program a lot. I prefer them to understand that it's going to be hard, right? And, you know, bringing in interesting people like you, Greg, like you should come to class and talk to them. Just remember, make them humble, man. Make them humble. Is for them to really see how hard it is, but also how much more persistence you need. You know, you got to keep on going. You got to keep on drilling out. Like, just got to keep on going for it. And sometimes some people don't like that, right? And some people do. They thrive on it. So, and sometimes people surprise themselves and go, wow, I can do this. So it's very interesting to see the academic tech transfer, but then really taking something that's very theoretical, like we did, and very, very demo-y, to then eventually really building on it, took a long time.
Yeah, and the idea of entrepreneurship is a lot more shiny than the reality.
Hey, you can put sparkles everywhere if you want. Like there's paper for it, right? So you can do that. I think the hours, the hours you got to put in, the commitment. You know, I might be a chief tech evangelist. We had to put tech because a lot of people didn't understand evangelism. We're like, oh, you're something else. So putting the tech and understanding, like I evangelize and talk about tech, and talk about the company to future employees. That's my role, right? There's this role of this that I do, educating clients, educating employees, future employees, yourselves, the market. But then there's this underlying work that you do. You know, you're supporting HR, you're supporting team building, culture, supporting strategy. So there's the layer that you think you're doing, if you're a CTO or CEO or product or HR, and then there's all this underlying work at a startup that I think people don't realize you have to do. You might be the one cleaning up pizza at the end of the day. So that was like me and Philip in the first, you know, and we're the last ones out. So guess what? We're cleaning this place up, and we don't want to get charged, you know, an extra fee. And there's the CEO, and here are the two co-founders cleaning, right? That's what we did. We did whatever it took, whatever it takes. First one's in, last one's out, right? That's what you could do as a founder, I think. But I wouldn't give it up. I would keep on going. It's a bit torture, right, Craig? Like, it's like we like the torture.
It absolutely it's delayed gratification at an extreme level. I'm not really sure why we do it, but
I don't think my family understands why I do it. But man, when you get those customers coming in, and so one day you'll have like a great, like, wow, we got this customer. Oh, we love it. The next day it's like, oh, they didn't like this. We got to fix this. Okay, fix. Like, so the up and roller coaster, I think that's what you got to be very comfortable with, is a roller coaster. It's not a straight line at all. So
now you hit on a hot button. When I talk to startups, a lot of times, depending on when they're in an industry, I'm not quite sure, or, I ask about the sales cycle. And a lot of times their eyes gloss over because they never even actually thought about this. And I've worked in markets where, it's seconds and it's 18 months.
yeah,
And there's a huge difference. And you really need to know the sales cycle of your environment. Like in education, it's a minimum of 18 months,
yeah.
minimum. And you're talking about 6 to 8 months. Do you have any advice for founders who are in an environment where it's a long sales cycle?
That that yeah, sales, because I've been in sales for a long time, like fine tuning products so you can make more sales. That 18 seconds you talked about, right? To those long sales cycles. I never wanted to go to an industry with long sales cycles. I love when money hits the bank quick. But saying that though, sometimes you're going into industries that are really fascinating, and you're like, this is a big problem, and we need to solve this. When it's a big problem, there's lots of stakeholders, and stakeholders all need their different levels of education, from your IT person to your CEO to the person who's going to eventually hold the problem, person who's going to eventually use it. So those layers we talk about, the multiple decision makers that come in, some have more power than others. And I think that is, I think this is one thing that you need to take a lot of time and get the right employees in. Like I mentioned, we didn't come from pharma. So we had to bring in the right people who have the pharmaceutical background, who've pretty much know all those positions in persona, understanding who they are and why and what makes them tick. So that's not coding. That's not data. Well, to a point, but that is human behavior. That is, people are like, yeah, but it's totally going to help their business. And then you realize there's a whole political level. There's a whole layer of decisions that have been made, or people being burnt in the past by other AI projects. And you're like, but that's not us. How do you get over that hump? How do you get over saying, but we used platforms before, we did that before? Or, well, the reality is that's what business is using and experimenting and finding and continuously improving. That's the same thing as us, is improving the sales cycle. So I might 6 to 8 months, but you're right, Greg. Like, it took us 18 months to start getting those conversations going. But I would say, taking time, do not outsource your sales. Bring experts in, bring in people who can support you and give you insights. But the founders and the founding team and the people who are the first employees all have to sell. Understanding and expanding and then automating and making it fine-tuning, that's later, right? That's later in your cycle of your growth as a company. That part of sales, I think, has been really hard. Is for every company, right? But the more you work on it, the more you can start hitting that message with the right person and starting to get all those objection lists and having the right information there for them. And saying, here's also, you eventually develop very good use cases, right? So use case development should start from day one. Sales rep planning took it from this many hours to this many minutes. Would that help you? in the field. And they're like, oh, and they're calculating, they're doing calculations. Oh, I have 500 in the field. If they can take 5 hours down to 7 minutes, oh my gosh, you know how much that's going to save? You got to put that into their minds. You got to put the right use cases and the right examples. IT teams, this is not taking away from your work. This is enhancing your work and even taking away all those headaches you used to have. And now you can work on you can start developing all those side projects you wanted to work on. So being able to say and give lots of use cases and different people you're talking to, I think it's a very human interaction. It's a people feel that sales are negative, but to me, I don't know, as a kid, I worked in my dad's deli. So human, if I can sell a bit more, I always got a bigger tip from my dad. So it's human interactions and just talking about how it'll help bring value to everybody you got to talk to.
Yeah, you mentioned having that retail sales experience. It's something everyone should try to do.
Yeah.
If you're young, bite the bullet and just go get some retail sales experience. It will give your income a multiplier for the rest of your life.
Yes, exactly. Like it's, those jobs as even as someone who is highly technical, and my students are all computer science students, they're all like data scientists, or from undergrad to PhD students. You have to sell all the time, and I think they don't get that. Like, and I'm saying you've got to sell. If you have an idea and you're moving up, you got to propose a new project, a new feature you're thinking about, or you got to present to your manager, or you're the CTO eventually. Guess what? You'll be doing all day. You're doing what I do. You got to be saying, you got to be in front of your board. You got to be in front of your employees. You're selling to your employees why they should be doing the work they're doing. They're like, why are we doing this? You got to continuously be selling the reasons behind your actions. And I think, look, it comes with age and it comes with experience, but I think those part-time jobs that I had in retail, I think selling mobile apps, trying to sell a mobile app, this is a long time ago, like 13, 14 years ago. Here it is, going to sell a mobile app. We were trying to compete against Yelp. It was a long time ago. And you're on the street and you're going to small stores and saying, hey, you should be building your website. Here's an app you can use. They weren't even on Yelp. Like, try to sell an app to people who are anti-tech, who don't even have, we have a waitress who does that. So try to sell your app on the street to small businesses. It's humbling, right? Nobody wants to download anything. Nobody like smartphones were just coming into fashion, I think that's when I get students to go talk to literally users and talk to them about what they've used and why they don't do things and have those conversations. It humbles them and they realize what they have to do next. And they have to keep on finding value. And I think that's the thing. You're trying to talk about value and selling value. It's not just I can sell ice to anyone or ice to like Canadians, but it's about, this is not about trying to sell something quickly, and trying to not sell value. This is about selling value. And if you're able to do that, it's a skill and you can develop it,
Absolutely. And just being able to bring any conversation around to what you need to. I've had some disastrous and wondrous experiences in that area. So I don't want to drag those on. Those are stories for another time.
Yeah, face plant moments. Face plant. You're like, oh, what did I just do and say?
Well, I'll say it now anyway. We're here. It's a podcast. We've both done incubators. So I was running an incubation program and our team was ready. And I thought they were ready. I had an improv guy come in and we did a whole improv class and talking about, and the mission about, how to engage people, how to talk to them. And I took them out to a bar and said, okay, your job is to go to at least one table engage them, and then talk
Wow.
about your startup. It was a huge disaster.
Oh, I bet. I think,
And
uh,
yeah, and it was, trying, but they were so in their head about everything
yeah,
around, like if you'd came here and you just went over to talk to the table, you would never thought twice, you just went over. But now that you're here and you have to talk about this one thing, it's this
yeah,
huge problem that you can't somehow get out of your head.
yeah, yeah. That kind of interactions, um, just yeah, it's amazing the it's a skill you got to develop. So I don't want people scared, right? Like, I don't want people scared, and I don't want new startup founders or startup founders who are saying, we got to hire all these people and to sell on our behalf, especially in the early stages, when you're trying to figure out how to create that cycle and how to automate it and how to make it better. Um, you just got to be able to just have good stories around why you do what you do, what pushes you forward. And at the end of the day, it's full circle for me. Taking care of now my mom, who's 86, it's full circle, right? For me, it's saying, what neurological therapeutic do I need to get my mom now, right? Who do I talk to? Where do I get that information? My end up goal would have been, I wish I had some more information except instead of Dr. Google, right? I need to go talk to doctors who don't have time for me. I need to get the right information from somewhere. There must be ways of creating better knowledge transfer of therapeutics to me to give to my mom, right? So I think that's creating good stories because they're your stories. They're your personal stories you live every day. And I think founders, if they live their stories, if you hear other founders, the really good ones, right? The ones I look up to, it's all about those personal stories that they could go into a bar and just say, like, what do you work on?
Absolutely.
I work on this. And then people are like, wow, I never thought of that. I never thought pharmaceutical companies were about that. And I'm like, yeah, well, someone needs to get a therapy and my
Yeah,
mom needs it, or my dad, or, my sister, or whoever it needs to be, right? This is the world we live in. And I think for me, it's always about transferring knowledge and figuring out how people can get things, right? And get access, like get it in their hands. So that's what drives me. That's what drives me all the time.
I've been talking to a lot of AI startups. Specifically, season 2 of my other podcast, Who Are These Startups, at whoarethisestartups.com, is all about AI startups. And I've been asking most of them one question.
Mm-hmm.
With the current call to pause AI development and countries rapidly trying to put regulation around AI, what's with all the fear? Is AI going to kill us all?
I think there's two parts of that. I think there's the reality that we live in, right? The reality that our everyday life, our reality that is every day, right? Our you know, getting into our car that tells us, careful, you're going to get into an accident, like it's, all the AI that's being used in your car, you go to work, all the tools you use, um, all the therapeutic diagnostics that you're using to diagnose and makes things faster. So all these, when you're using your phone, all the tools we're using around us, the reality of what we're using, machine learning, AI, new emerging tech, that's the reality of what we use, right? And we've created checks and balances around that, around data privacy policies, how is patient data private, of course, and aggregated to your data as a consumer, so we're putting, those are the layers that are very I think, a very grounded, for me, it's a very grounded reality. This is what we use. These are the technology, these are the tools. The future of AI and the next layer is something that is very geopolitical, very, how do we as Canadians, if push our values of transparency, of responsibility, of um, like um, citizen privacy and citizen responsibility, citizenship, and who we are as citizens of Canada, and also that we're citizens part of other organizations. How are we unifying and how are we pushing values that are going to affect the world, right? So as a, and there are values we hold personally at a ground level, and then how do we push that? There's a lot of danger anyways. It doesn't matter if it's AI in a drone or it's just a drone that's being used in this way. So I'm not trying to be, this is not a, everything's great. And I think if you've seen my tech talks, I've talked about, citizenship manipulation. Are you dating a chatbot? All these things that are talked about now. I talked about in 2017. Talked about these issues of, um, being used against us. And you can see that we're going back and going, wait a minute, how? And you saw from 2017 to now how we're trying to create policies around that. At a bigger layer, that's a very large issue, I think. And I think we need to push our governments to, I think we still need to be very competitive. We live in a very ephemeral world. And I think we need to stay very competitive at a government level, to protect us. And of course, to protect us at multiple levels, right? I don't think you can cocoon yourself in. I think you have to be very proactive on development, proactive on transparency, and proactive on, of course, having, what I mean by transparency, open discussions about what is being developed, right? But then also, you can't be naive, right? Um, Shutting things down and just becoming this, like, trying to stop things by being developed. The question is who's developing, right? And who's got the checks and balances. We try to keep checks and balances. The question is the world keeping checks and balances? So it's a hot topic, Greg. It's a really hard one, and I think about it often. But at a ground level, there's a lot of people trying to keep us protected. The question is, how do you keep a global issue protected? So yeah, I think about it a lot. But I try not to go deep into a dark hole, trust me, because everyone thinks I go very negative quite quickly. You can see I'm a very positive person, but these are things I think about a lot, and they're very important to think about, and not take lightly at all.
We're almost at it. We are out of time, but I've got a couple quick questions for you. I can't bring you on and not ask you about fundraising. I've seen that ODAIA has raised over 43.4 million last time I looked through different rounds. What is your biggest lesson in pitching to investors and fundraising for your startup?
My co-founder, Philip, he's amazing. He's really, really good at this. It's, as a team, we support him. So this is, I think when you get to a Series B round, it's really CEO and CFO focused, while I'm working on supporting the rest of the organization, right? That's what usually happens, right? In the beginning, the first stages as a startup, it's you and your co-founders continuously going out and pitching, right? I was pitching at so many competitions. I think you saw me. And I was there. I was always pitching. And, until you get to Series B, though, it's now, you should be smooth running. There shouldn't be two founders there. There should be, the one founder and the CFO, and they're running and they're going, and whatever support they need from us. My advice is, I always say it's a numbers game, and it's all about strategically having a plan and a very defined time of how much what you're gonna spend on this process, because you're gonna lose your CEO for a while. And founders have noticed that. They're like, I haven't seen our CEO. And I'm like, I know, he's really busy and we need him. And he's getting pulled every direction, or she is pulled in every direction. But when they're fundraising, that's their job. That is their job. They're there to bring in money to support the growth of the company. I think having patience with that and understanding that your CEO is going through that, and also understand that you will have to take on a lot more work too, right? And trusting the rest of your team. You need to be strategic. It's like a sales call. And you've got to plan. It's pre-planning and getting out there and understanding how you're strategically going to go after. And that's from the beginning, I think, until Series C, Series, and you keep on going. It's always a strategic plan before. This is not just get out there and pitch all the time. This is about a strategic way of planning of how you're going to pitch. And keep on talking. You're always pitching. Keep on talking to investors all the time. Conversations. You're not pitching, just conversations. Just talking to them about your goals and what you're working on. But you're not pitching. Pitching comes later, right? For money. So.
Absolutely. And, always talk to investors looking for advice. They might give you connections. They might do all sorts of other things.
Yeah. And always go after the investors. I will say one thing, Craig. One of the investors and advisors are not asking things from you. They're not going to ask things. They're going to give. So remember, people are starting to ask things from you, like, you're like, no, you're supposed to give. You give. And then when we have a conversation of if we should continue this, be your investor, eventually you want to be an investor in our company, that's when the negotiation happens. But really, it's a lot of giving. And the people you like getting stuff from, and you like that relationship, that's who you should get money from, is the people who really supported you when you were down, or were there when they didn't have to help you, right? They have lots of teams, but it's the ones who are really there and supporting you continuously. Those are the advisors and investors you should bring on.
Yeah, and talk to, like I said, as many investors as you can, and the ones that are helpful, continue to talk to them. I'll tell you quickly, I talked to investors about a project I was working on, and they were giving me advice and whatnot, and they see me month after month moving it forward. And 18 months later, they were coming to me saying, hey, are you looking for investors yet? We're ready to go. Like, they see you taking those steps, and they see what you're doing. They've been following you, and they're ready.
Yeah, exactly. I think you got to be, I think it's, again, it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of talking.
And I like to say you need to talk to 100 investors, and it's strategically target investors within about a 5-week period of time. If you want to raise, it has to be focused. It has to be people don't realize they talk to 2 investors and they're like, I'm just,
I'm done. Yeah. I'm going to go have some coffee now. See ya. And it's like, no, it's about multiple and hundreds. Exactly what you said, man. Exactly. It's it's numbers.
What's next for you and ODAIA?
Expansion. Yeah. Growth and expansion is just expanding. I think we've really fine-tuned. Series B was the time when you now have product market fit, right? You've repeated it. You found value, and now you need to get into now it's all sales. It's all building out, fine-tuning what you have on engineering, and then upping your marketing and sales teams, right? So that's for us in the short term of a year, 2, 3 years, is expanding. The big thing for us is becoming a large company, is building something big. I think that was from the beginning between me and Philip. We're like, we got to build something big, because this is the time. You can't go small. And I think this is, I don't know, maybe because we got big personalities. I don't know, we're both Greek, so that's I think the reason. We just love big weddings and big fat Greek weddings. So I think it's getting out there and building something really big and sustainable and repeatable, and just it's exciting. It's scary, it's exciting, and it's good though. And I think our investors are really, really behind us, from Threshold and Winnington, and I think it's kind of they've been really, really, really supportive, and I think this is kind of, for me, it's been kind of I think when you get that support and you're talking to them and they see potential, that is what gets really exciting, is when someone sees potential in you and you're like, I got to do this, right? So yeah, go big.
Where can people go and find out more about you and ODAIA?
LinkedIn is my best place. So, just put up Helen Kontozopoulos. And that's where I post everything that we're working on. And of course, ODAIA.ai, right? And yeah, please. And Instagram's just social. It's just having fun. So LinkedIn is the place you're going to meet me.
And those links will be in the podcast show notes. So if you're looking, just click on the show notes and all the links will be there. I really appreciate you taking the time, Helen, out of your busy day to be on Startup Talk.
Thank you so much. And I just love that finally we did this. I love that we finally got connected, and I can't wait to connect in person though and have that drink with you.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
There we go. That was okay? You like
Yeah,
that?
it was great. Yeah.
Okay.